Listen, chosen one. The same ones who look down their noses at you, they're choking on their own arrogance now. Watching you execute moves so brilliant, it's making them question every time they called you slow. The foolishness is eating them alive. You see, while they were patting themselves on the back for being smarter, you were accessing divine intelligence that makes their education look like preschool. Now they're sitting there marinating in their own embarrassment, replaying every moment they underestimated you. The shame is burning them from the inside out. Remember how they used to smirk when you spoke? Now they can't even look in the mirror without cringing at their own ignorance. That's what happens when you mistake a chosen one's calculated silence for stupidity. You end up looking like the biggest fool in the spiritual realm. They're drowning in regret, realizing they had a divine mastermind in their presence and treated you like you were beneath them. The foolishness is so heavy, it's keeping them up at night. Every power move you make is another reminder of their catastrophic mistake. Watch how they try to hide their faces when you walk by. The embarrassment is radiating off them. They know they missed out on greatness because they were too busy feeling superior. Now, all they can do is sit in their foolishness while you demonstrate levels of brilliance that make their whole existence look amateur. That's the divine payback for underestimating God's chosen. Their arrogance turned into their own prison, and baby, the foolishness they're feeling, that's just the beginning of their spiritual sentence. They never saw you coming, not because you were weak, not because you were unremarkable, but because you never needed their validation. While they paraded their so-called brilliance for the world to see, you remained silent, absorbing everything, calculating your next move with the precision of a master strategist. The chosen ones have never needed applause to confirm their worth. Their power is not measured by loud proclamations, but by their ability to observe, adapt, and act when the moment is right. The world underestimates what it cannot immediately categorize, mistaking silence for insignificance, when in reality, it is the clearest sign of something far more dangerous: unshakable certainty. History is filled with those who were overlooked until they became impossible to ignore. Nikola Tesla was dismissed, laughed at, and ridiculed by those who clung to the past. Yet his brilliance reshaped the world. J.K. Rowling was rejected by publisher after publisher before her story became a cultural phenomenon. Steve Jobs was cast out of his own company only to return and redefine an industry. The same world that cast them aside was forced to bow to their vision. Their silence was never submission. It was preparation. The greatest advantage of the chosen ones is their ability to maneuver unseen. While others seek immediate recognition, they operate in the shadows, cultivating strength, refining their skills, and waiting for the perfect moment. They let the arrogant bask in their delusions, knowing that power is not seized in a moment of desperation, but built in the quiet, meticulous hours when no one is watching. And when they strike, it is never impulsive. It is deliberate, calculated, and devastatingly effective. The world is always caught off guard because it was too busy admiring the loud, the flashy, the obvious. But true power is never obvious. Silence is not weakness. It is the space where true power is forged. It is the domain of those who do not beg for attention, but command it through undeniable mastery. When the chosen ones rise, there is no announcement, no warning, only the undeniable force of their arrival. And by the time the world finally recognizes them, it is already too late. Arrogance blinds. It convinces the foolish that they are wise, the weak that they are strong, and the loud that they are powerful. Those who underestimated you did so because they believed intelligence and capability could be measured in shallow displays of dominance. They mistook confidence for competence, volume for value, presence for power. In their narrow vision, they assumed that if you weren't demanding attention, you weren't worth noticing at all. But assumptions are the downfall of the arrogant, and the price of their blindness is always steep. History has proven time and again that the most dangerous people are the ones no one sees coming. They dismissed David as a mere shepherd boy, yet he felled a giant with a single stone. They ignored Einstein because he was a quiet child who spoke late, never imagining he would redefine the laws of physics. They mocked Oprah, believing she would never be more than a local news anchor, failing to see the empire she was about to build. Time after time, the arrogant have scoffed at the silent, the reserved, the unassuming, only to watch in horror as those very people eclipse them. The true weakness of arrogance is that it creates blind spots. The moment someone believes they have all the answers, they stop looking for new ones. They dismiss possibilities, ignore threats, and refuse to acknowledge brilliance in any form they do not immediately recognize. And so they make the fatal mistake of underestimating the very people who were born to surpass them. Never underestimate the quiet ones. It's a phrase whispered in hindsight, spoken only after the damage has been done. The world never heeds this warning in time. The arrogant never realize their mistake until they are forced to choke on it. It starts subtly, a shift so small they barely notice it at first. Maybe it's your name they suddenly hear more often, a project of yours that gains traction, a conversation where someone speaks of you in a tone they've never used before. At first, they dismiss it. A fluke, they tell themselves, an anomaly. But then the pattern repeats again and again until denial is no longer an option. The person they once dismissed, the name they scoffed at, the presence they overlooked, you are becoming something they can no longer afford to ignore. And then it happens. The moment they realize they were wrong about you. The moment they see with brutal clarity that you were never beneath them. You were merely waiting. Their confidence fractures into uncertainty. Their laughter fades into forced silence. They watch in stunned disbelief as you step into the very power they once denied you. Suddenly, the dynamics have shifted, and they are no longer the ones in control. The tables have turned, and the weight of their misjudgment crushes them. They scramble to make sense of it. How did this happen? How did they not see it coming? They grasp for explanations, excuses, anything to soften the sting of their miscalculation. But deep down, they know the truth. They were never playing the game as well as they thought they were. Being outmaneuvered the entire time, their arrogance was their downfall, and now they are left with nothing but regret. Power does not shift with fanfare. It moves in silence, creeping through the cracks of arrogance until it becomes undeniable. And by the time they finally recognize who you really are, it's already too late. Regret is a heavy burden. It lingers, festers, gnaws at the mind with the cruelest what if. What if they had aligned themselves with you instead of casting you aside? But hindsight is useless to the arrogant, for by the time they realize their mistake, the doors they once walked through so effortlessly have been locked forever. History is littered with those who let their arrogance cost them everything. Kodak laughed at digital photography. Now they are a footnote in history. Blockbuster had the chance to buy Netflix for a mere $50 million. They scoffed, believing their empire was untouchable. Yahoo dismissed the opportunity to acquire Google for just $1 million. Today, Google is worth over $1 trillion. These weren't simple mistakes. They were acts of hubris, the failure to recognize brilliance simply because it didn't fit their narrow expectations. But the cost isn't always financial. It's personal, too. The mentor who refused to nurture your talent, now watching from the sidelines as you surpass them. The former peer who ridiculed your ideas, now desperately trying to catch up. The employer who undervalued you, now forced to watch you build something greater than they ever could. The sting of their arrogance is permanent because they had the chance to stand beside you. They had the chance to be part of something extraordinary, and they let it slip through their fingers. Now they watch from the outside, realizing too late that they were never as powerful as they believed. Their downfall wasn't your rise. It was their refusal to acknowledge it. And that is a mistake they will never recover from. In a world that equates noise with power, the chosen ones understand a profound truth. True strength lies in silence. While others clamor for attention, broadcasting their every move, you remain in the shadows, meticulously planning, observing, and waiting. This deliberate quietness is not born of fear or indecision, but is a calculated strategy to outmaneuver those who underestimate you. Consider the art of chess. The most formidable players do not reveal their strategies prematurely. They make innocuous moves, lulling their opponents into a false sense of security, all the while orchestrating a masterful plan. Then, in a decisive moment, they strike with precision, leaving their adversaries stunned and defeated. Similarly, by maintaining silence, you avoid drawing attention to your intentions, allowing you to navigate challenges without interference. In the realm of business, companies often employ stealth modes, developing groundbreaking products away from the prying eyes of competitors. This secrecy ensures that by the time their innovations are unveiled, rivals have no time to react, securing a significant market advantage. Your personal journey mirrors this approach. By not announcing your every ambition, you protect your goals from sabotage and premature criticism. And now, let us take a brief moment to honor the chosen among us. Here's to the ones who see the world differently, the silent guardians, the watchful souls, always awake, always vigilant. They don't fit the mold, and they wouldn't have it any other way. While others walk familiar paths, they forge their own, fighting unseen battles, illuminating the shadows. It's not for everyone, and that's okay. But if you feel it deep within, you'll know this is meant for you. No masks, no pretense, just truth. The Obsidian Inner Order is here, a place where kindred spirits gather to share wisdom, to connect, to transform. Over 450 strong, united not by conformity, but by purpose. If you're ready, you know where to find us. The link is in the description. If not, that's perfectly fine, because we're always here, watching over, making a difference in ways unseen. Here's to those who walk their own path, not for recognition, but because it's who they are. Here's to you. Thank you. Drop a comment. They never saw me coming. If you've ever been underestimated, they thought they had you figured out. They measured success with rigid formulas, grades, connections, social standing, inherited advantages. They assign numbers to intelligence, equations to potential, as if human brilliance could be calculated by a predictable system. But the chosen ones defy formulas. They break the expected patterns, dismantling the illusions of those who believed success was reserved for a chosen few. History is shaped by those who refuse to be defined by conventional metrics. Albert Einstein, once deemed a failure by traditional schooling, rewrote the laws of physics. Elon Musk, ridiculed for his audacious visions, reshaped entire industries. Vera Wang didn't design her first dress until she was 40. Colonel Sanders didn't franchise KFC until his 60s. The world underestimated them because they didn't fit the standard blueprint of success. But they weren't following a blueprint. They were writing their own. The arrogant cling to logic because it gives them comfort. They believe that if something cannot be immediately explained, then it cannot be real. They dismiss the outliers, the disruptors, the rule breakers, because their minds cannot grasp the unpredictable nature of greatness. But true intelligence is not bound by a rigid formula. It thrives in creativity, resilience, and the ability to adapt when the rules no longer apply. The chosen ones do not succeed because they fit the mold. They succeed because they shatter it. And by the time the world realizes their brilliance, the old systems that once tried to contain them are already obsolete. They thought they had you figured out. They measured success with rigid formulas, grades, connections, social standing, inherited advantages. They assigned numbers to intelligence, equations to potential, as if your brilliance could be calculated by a predictable system. But you were never meant to fit inside their formulas. You were never designed to follow their path. You break the expected patterns, dismantling the illusions of those who believe success was reserved for a chosen few. They dismissed you because you didn't fit their definition of intelligence. They mistook your silence for ignorance, your patience for passivity. But history is shaped by those like you, the ones who refuse to be defined by conventional metrics. Albert Einstein, once deemed a failure by traditional schooling, rewrote the laws of physics. Elon Musk, ridiculed for his audacious visions, reshaped entire industries. Vera Wang didn't design her first dress until she was 40. Colonel Sanders didn't franchise KFC until his 60s. The world underestimated them just as it underestimated you. But you weren't following their blueprint. You were writing your own. The arrogant cling to logic because it gives them comfort. They believe that if something cannot be immediately explained, then it cannot be real. They dismiss the outliers, the disruptors, the rule breakers, because their minds cannot grasp the unpredictable nature of greatness. But true intelligence is not bound by a rigid formula. It thrives in creativity, resilience, and the ability to adapt when the rules no longer apply. You do not succeed because you fit the mold. You succeed because you shatter it. And by the time they realize your brilliance, the old systems that once tried to contain you are already obsolete. They believed they were untouchable. Their confidence was not built on skill or wisdom, but on the fragile foundation of unchecked arrogance. They saw themselves as kings, rulers of a game they barely understood. And because of that, they never even considered the possibility that you, the one they dismissed, the one they mocked, would be the force that topples their kingdom. Hubris is the downfall of the mighty. The Greeks knew this well. Icarus, blinded by overconfidence, soared too close to the sun, only to plummet into the sea. Oedipus, convinced of his own brilliance, walked straight into his own destruction. History repeats this lesson endlessly, yet the arrogant never learn. They assume their position is secure, their power eternal, their dominance unquestioned. They look down on others with smug certainty, never realizing that power does not belong to those who are loudest. It belongs to those who are smartest. You watched as they flaunted their supposed superiority. You listened as they spoke with certainty about things they barely understood. You let them believe their own illusions because you knew the truth. Ego makes people reckless. Their belief in their own invincibility made them sloppy, predictable, easy to outmaneuver. And so, while they wasted their time feeding their own pride, you sharpened your mind, refined your skills, and prepared for the inevitable shift. Now, as they scramble to make sense of how they lost control, they finally understand their mistake. Their arrogance wasn't a sign of strength, it was a weakness. And you were never beneath them. You were simply waiting for them to destroy themselves. Opportunities are fragile things. A single miscalculation, a single moment of arrogance, and they slip away, never to return. They had their chance. They could have stood beside you, learned from you, built with you. But instead, they chose to ignore you, to mock you, to write you off as irrelevant. And now, they are forced to live with the weight of what they lost forever. You weren't just another face in the crowd. You were the force that could have changed their trajectory. Your ideas could have elevated them. Your presence could have strengthened them. Your vision could have given them a future far greater than the one they now struggle to maintain. But they didn't see it. Or worse, they refused to. And that choice, their choice, has cost them everything. Now, they watch from a distance, trying to rewrite history. They say they always believed in you. They pretend they saw your potential from the beginning. But you remember the truth. You remember their smirks, their dismissive glances, their underestimation. And while they grasp at excuses, trying desperately to attach themselves to your success, you continue forward, leaving them behind in the ruins of their own arrogance. Some mistakes can be fixed. This one cannot. What they lost was not just an opportunity. It was you, and that is something they will regret for the rest of their lives. Denial can only last so long. At first, they tried to ignore you, convincing themselves that your success was a fluke, that it would fade just as quickly as it appeared. But it didn't fade. It grew. It spread. And suddenly, your name, the name they once dismissed, was everywhere. Then came the whispers, the realization creeping in like a slow-burning fire. Their conversations shifted from mocking you to questioning you. How did this happen? How did we miss this? Their confidence cracked. Their certainty wavered. And then, finally, it hit them like a tidal wave. The truth they had fought so hard to avoid became undeniable. They were wrong about you. Completely, irreversibly, catastrophically wrong. The weight of their judgment crashes over them, suffocating and inescapable. They replay every interaction, every moment they underestimated you, every opportunity they let slip through their fingers. And the worst part, there is no undoing it. They had their chance to stand beside you, to recognize your brilliance before the world did. But they failed, and failure at this level is permanent. Now, they are forced to watch as you take your place among the greats. Without them, their recognition comes too late. Their regret burns too deep, and all they can do is stand in the wreckage of their own foolishness, wishing they had seen you for what you always were. But the moment has passed, and you don't even look back. You could destroy them. You could call them out, expose their arrogance, make them feel the humiliation they once tried to inflict on you. You have every reason to seek revenge, to make them beg, to make them suffer. But you won't, because true power doesn't need validation. Your success is your answer. Your triumph is the only response you need. While they crumble under the weight of their mistakes, you rise. Untouched by their past mockery, you don't need to humiliate them. They have already humiliated themselves. You don't need to remind them of their failure. They are haunted by it every time they hear your name. There is grace in true dominance. The truly powerful do not waste energy on those who no longer matter. You don't seek revenge because you don't need it. Their downfall was inevitable, and your success was always destined. This was never about proving them wrong, it was about proving yourself right. And so, you move forward without resentment, without anger, without a backward glance. Because the greatest victory isn't vengeance. It's knowing that no matter what they say, no matter what they do, they will never, never be able to undo what you have become. You didn't just succeed. You changed everything. The rules they clung to, the systems they trusted, the illusions they built their confidence upon, all of it has been shattered. You didn't follow their path. You forged your own. And now, the very people who once dismissed you are scrambling to adapt to a world you redefined. But your victory is bigger than them. It extends beyond their regret, beyond their failures, because your rise is proof that intelligence, power, and influence are not determined by arrogance, wealth, or empty confidence. They belong to those who think differently, move strategically, and refuse to be confined by outdated expectations. You are living proof that greatness isn't loud, it is undeniable. Now others watch you, not with mockery, but with awe. The ones who were once overlooked, the ones who were doubted, the ones who were told they weren't enough. They see you, and in you, they find permission to step into their own power. Your story becomes the blueprint for those who refuse to be defined by mediocrity. You are not just a success, you are a symbol. And as for those who underestimated you, they'll never make the same mistake again.